Here we go. Let's get started with these materials. So I used 2 of this stem from Hobby Lobby, 2 of these stems from Hobby Lobby, this gold ribbon and this cream and gold ribbon from Walmart, a half a piece of styrofoam, and some pieces of felt. I just had these pieces. You could use any color you want. Then I found this really nice hurricane style vase at a thrift store. Then I have these pretty gold glittery picks and these kind of cream feathery picks that are also from Walmart. And then to top it off, I have these ornaments that will all coordinate together. So next I'll show you how to fluff and prepare your stems. Remember, we'll use 2 of each of these. You do end up cutting the bottom 3 pieces off, and we will reuse these later in the design. And I do decide that I needed to cut these stems, and these stems are wrapped with string, so I have to end up cutting it with the scissors too to get it all the way off. So the first thing you do is cut off the bottom 3 pieces and set those aside because you will use those. I do end up cutting off the long pine needle portion as well. I just decided in this I didn't like it. I do cut off these smaller pieces. And you end up having to trim some of that extra green from the bottom. Really, in the end, that really won't be seen. But we're just going to continue to open up and fluff this stem, pulling our stems up and down and to the side. And for this design, I don't want these red berries, and these are nice red berries, so hold on to those. So just kind of alternate up and down to each side. Spreading them out as even as you can. So this other stem has a bunch of pine cones, and I do like pine cones, but not for this design. So I end up cutting all of these off, as well as the bottom 3 pieces, and of course that tag, and then continuing to fluff. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to take 1 of each stem, and we are going to stack one on top of the other. And I kind of stagger them a bit, making one longer than the other for this project. And I just take a couple of the pine stems and just twist them all the way at the bottom where they connect, twist them a couple times. You could also add some dark colored zip ties if you felt that you needed some extra support to keep those attached. And then just continue to spread them out. And here I do show that I cut that long pine needle one off. Now we're going to cut our styrofoam with our styrofoam cutter, and this is already hot. We're just going to cut a U shape or half a circle. Be careful with the styrofoam cutter, that will burn. I always clean it off and put it away so I don't end up burning myself, because I have done that before. Next, you want to get your brown felt and your hot glue gun out, and you're going to cut slits up your felt and then glue this. You could use less glue. The more glue that you use, the harder it's going to be to get any stems in there. But there are ways around that, and I'll show you that later. So just kind of wrap it like a present, cutting any excess off where you need to until you get it all wrapped. We'll cut a square to go on the bottom. This will help protect any surfaces that it'll sit on. Next, I'll show you how to put your pieces into that little cavity that we've cut in the styrofoam. And I did decide to cut my stems a little shorter. So I just cut those down, making sure there's enough to overlap at least a little bit. I'll put a couple of zip ties on here to hold it together. And then I will take a couple of extra pieces of stems from other projects, and I'll make little U-pins. And those will help hold them, along with some hot glue. So add a bunch of hot glue in there. Put your U-pins in. Be careful, since you already have your hot glue in, you don't want to burn your fingers. And then after we put those in, we can put our brown on the bottom. And then trim any excess off. It's good to always check that whatever you're putting on that styrofoam, that it'll sit flat. And you can see this is not quite flat. So next, I'm adding some holes with the end of my needle nose pliers to add those extra pieces of green that we've cut off those stems. And I just divided them evenly, because you're going to put these extra stems on both sides, and that will help you fill out the rest of your design on the sides. And when you get it all fluffed out and put together, you can't tell any difference between the full stems and the extra stems that you're putting in. This is a good place to mention that if you stuck with me so far on this project and you're enjoying this, and if you want to see more of my videos, to do the like, the subscribe, and even comment with ideas of projects you'd like to see me record for you. So I'm adding these extra stems to each end. Just find where it needs to go. I pull out a small zip tie, and then I will trim off that very end patch of green in order for that to fit. Now, I will point out here that this is a little topsy-turvy or not quite level. And so here's a picture of what I did to make it level. I used some bottle caps from water bottles and hot glued them and made sure to put felt on the bottom. And this seemed to raise the whole piece up half an inch, and that seemed to fix the problem. So now we will start to get the pieces together for the design, and we're going to make a bow. We'll start on the bottom with this really pretty gold ribbon, and I leave the tails only about 4 to 5 inches long, maybe 6 inches long, because they sit kind of flat on the table. These I don't want very long. And then I just make these loops 3 inches long. These aren't huge bows because we don't want to hide any of our other pretty things we're putting in there. And I'm going to do 3 loops on each side with this gold ribbon at 3 inches long. So you slide your ribbon in, and then you want to turn it, and then slide it in again, and that makes your ribbon, the right side, turn upwards. Make sure you have the same amount of loops on each side if that's the kind of bow you're going for. And then for this bow maker, I'd like to turn it sideways so I can compare my sides and trim off your extra. And I'm going to go ahead and dovetail by folding that in half with the wire edges together and cutting upwards from the folded side at an angle. So there we have the bottom part of our bow, and next I'm going to put the cream and gold, and I'm really going to leave the tails about the same length, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this one dovetailed so that way it'll just be done. We'll just have the one tail we have to dovetail. So with this ribbon, I do the same thing, slide it in, do one turn, and then these loops on this ribbon are just slightly smaller, making it so you can see both ribbons. And this cream and gold ribbon, I'm only doing 2 loops on each side. Pretty simple, basic bow, but the color combination is really quite elegant. So next I take a pipe cleaner and I pull on my bow and lift it up a bit so I can put that pipe cleaner in and twist it, and I use the pipe cleaner to pull the bow out, keeping it together. And then I wrap that pipe cleaner around to the back side and twist it a couple times. Now I am going to put a piece of extra flower stem in here to make make it a pick to go into our styrofoam. So I make a U to put underneath that ribbon and glue it in place so it stays there. And you want to make 2 of these bows because you're going to put one on each side of the hurricane lamp. So next I'm going to show you how to prep your picks. And you'll need your wire cutters, your glue gun, gold pipe cleaners, and white pipe cleaners. So these ones one stem makes quite a few smaller individual pieces. First you take off that silly tag and put your extras aside. And I do end up pulling out my bigger pliers that are actually made for plumbing, as they can cut a thicker stem. I do end up using 2 hands to do that. These wire cutters can't go through that thick wire. So it just takes less time if I just pull these ones out. 2 hands, a little bit of muscle, and just separating your pieces and cutting. You go to the bottom, giving yourself as much stem in each section as possible. I do go back through and make sure that these are no more than 2 pieces in each grouping. Anything more than that, like this one, I go back and I cut them off. And like this one, I just cut them off. Now I can put them back together using a white pipe cleaner and just wrap that around the bottom, and you have yourself a little pick. So that's what the white pipe cleaners are for. So then next we're going to work on the gold ones, and I use these metal clothespins. And for this project I used, I believe, 2 of these for each side. So I just pull off the gold curly cues, and then I'm going to get my needle nose pliers and get in there and cut that section in 2. You do end up losing some of the pine needles, but that's okay. We can glue them back on later. So there you have 2 pieces and some random needles. And I just put them where I decide they're going to go. Just a shot of glue and they'll be fine. And then pull the curly cues apart. One of the spiky sections will get 1 curly cue. The other section will get 2 curly cues. And some glue and one of those clothespins, and you're good. I do go back and add about a half to a third of a piece of gold pipe cleaner on each one, making it so I can wire them to the branches. Glue and wire. With doing both, you end up getting a little bit more security. So once the glue is dry, you can add your gold pipe cleaners and you are done with this part. So here you can see I have added my extra greens around the side, and I've done the same thing that I'm doing here with the bow and used some small needle nose pliers and punched a hole, and I just glued those extra pieces around the side, kind of like what I'm doing with the bow. So one bow goes on one side in the middle, and another bow goes on the other side, and you can keep fluffing your bow all the time I like to fluff bows, but they always get smashed in the process. So just add more glue if you need to. Sometimes the plastic on those stems melts, and so you have to glue it again. Sometimes you just need a little bit of extra glue. So when you get it finished, it'll look like this. And next we will take 20 inches of the gold, 20 inches of the cream, pinch it together and put a pipe cleaner on it. And then I have a small U-pin that I'm using to just attach that to the middle on the inside. And I do that on both sides. Once that's done and secure, then I can kind of pull out the ribbon and anchor it with another piece of pipe cleaner. And you can leave those tails as long or as short as you'd like. It's your project, you get to decide. And you just attach it to one of those pines. And you want to go kind of down towards the base or stem, the main stem of where it's attached to. You don't want it on the end of the pine. And just twist it a couple times and you're good. So once you have both of those in each side, you separate your ribbons a little bit so you can see them. And then we can start adding all of our other goodies. I know you've stuck with me this long, so that means you're enjoying my video. Wouldn't you mind subscribing to my channel, please? Thank you. So next we're going to add our gold picks. Here I just show using glue, but I do go back in and add a pipe cleaner to the bottom of each of those to make sure they're good and secure. You do the same thing with the cream ones, mixing them, spreading them evenly, and you get a nice full effect. Next, you'll go in with your ornaments and spread them out. I ended up using one of the cream color with a little bit of gold and two of the gold. And what I like to do is I just kind of like to place them in where I think I want them, you know, and kind of look at it, and that way you're not committed with it being glued yet. If you decide you want to move something, you can. Once you're glued, a lot of times you can't do that. With the cream one, I want to be able to make sure to see the design that's on the side. It's got a cardinal. So I decide I want that cardinal on the end and the two gold up at the top. So sometimes with these, I just glue them in. Sometimes I add a pick on the top, or not a pick, a pipe cleaner on the top. If I'm just going to glue them, I make sure to take the topper off and glue all around the stem and make sure to do plenty of glue and try and stick it into where the green actually is and twist it a couple times, kind of like you're twisting a doorknob. This one I take the topper off as well. Add some glue to the top and then put it in place. You can always add more glue to help them stay in place where you want them to. And in this project, I do go back and add some extra glue underneath a couple of these. So these ones I decided I wanted to add a pipe cleaner at the top. So I'm gluing the topper on because they tend to come off very easily. So I glue the topper on and add a third of a pipe cleaner and let it dry before I put it in. While it's drying, I'm checking the other ones and I'm making any adjustments that I need, adding more glue. So before you're done, you'll have both sides looking pretty much like the other side. All your ornaments will be secured in, all of your picks will be secured in, and that white one will be attached, and this is what you end up with.